She thought it was just another late shift at the diner, but one unexpected act of kindness changed her entire life forever. When a tired waitress gave a drunk stranger a safe ride home, she had no idea he was a billionaire in disguise, and within 1 week her world flipped upside down when that same stranger returned not for a meal, but with an offer that would shake the entire restaurant to its core, and hand her the keys to her wildest dream. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. Friday night clung to the small river town like damp mist. Inside Riverside Grill, every chair was filled, and conversations climbed over one another in a cheerful roar. The warm glow of hanging lamps mixed with the sharper scent of sizzling butter. Nobody guessed the evening would end with a twist worth retelling. Lena Rios slid between tables carrying 2 overloaded trays. Her ponytail brushed against her back as she balanced plates of rosemary chicken and baskets of garlic fries. She felt sweat gather near her hairline, yet her smile stayed steady because tips in autumn paid January rent. Each thank you from diners kept her feet moving. Behind the swinging kitchen doors, chaos brewed. Chef Martin had left a message hours earlier saying a sudden fever forced him home. The remaining line cook battled a mountain of orders while supplies ran thin. Worst of all, the last Wagyu steaks had already vanished from the cooler. The pride of the menu was gone. Bruno, the manager, kept pacing like a captain on a stormy deck. He assured guests their meals were coming, though his voice betrayed doubt. He wrote replacement suggestions on a notepad and coached new staff to apologize with sincerity. Still, he knew missing Wagyu could spark disappointment in certain clientele. At booth 12 sat Nolan Vargas, a quiet man in a charcoal blazer who visited once every few weeks. His wire-framed glasses and gentle nods made him seem like a poet. Yet rumors among servers hinted he owned hotels and vineyards beyond the state border. Lena did not care for gossip, but she noticed he always tipped generously. Tonight Nolan ordered his usual rare Wagyu with truffle butter plus a glass of single malt. Lena keyed the order, then froze when the line cook whispered there is none left. Her stomach dropped. She hurried back to explain, yet hoped for understanding. Nolan lifted a brow as Lena knelt slightly to speak. She shared the shortage and offered the herb-crusted strip as substitute. His gaze drifted to the window as though measuring patience. He softly replied the Wagyu was his only craving this evening. Switching dishes would feel like canceling a long-anticipated journey. Bruno arrived with a polite smile and extended a free meal voucher along with an apology dessert. Nolan waved away the offers. He took a careful sip of whiskey and admitted he might have enjoyed the single malt too quickly. Driving felt unwise. He leaned toward Lena and said, "Safety matters more than steak. May I trouble you for a ride home?" The request startled her. Lena thought of her evening bus schedule and her mother waiting with leftover soup. She also saw fatigue in Nolan's eyes, a kind of quiet wobble that even a billionaire might feel after a hard week. She nodded yes, though her pulse danced like a hummingbird. After her shift, Bruno loaned the restaurant's umbrella, and Iris, the hostess, gave a thumbs up. Lena guided Nolan through drizzle to a sleek charcoal sedan parked nearby. Raindrops stitched silver threads across the windshield as they set off toward Maple Hill. The drive wound past silent shops and autumn trees shaking loose golden leaves. Nolan spoke little. He asked Lena about her favorite dish to serve. She said the citrus-glazed salmon because it reminded her of summer picnics with her grandmother. He smiled at the image and listened more than he talked. At a stone gate lined with lanterns, he directed her up a sweeping driveway. A modern house appeared like a quiet ship anchored on a sea of lawn. She parked near the lit porch. Nolan thanked her with surprising softness and tried to hand her several folded bills. Lena stepped back, saying kindness was not for sale. Nolan chuckled and tucked the money into his blazer. Then he reached into the glove box and withdrew a small silver pen. He wrote something on a business card before placing it in the cup holder. "Call if you ever need a new map," was all he said. Under the porch light he waved as the front door opened. Lena waited until he disappeared inside. The porch glowed warm against the rainy night. Turning the sedan carefully, she felt the steering wheel chill her fingers. Halfway back to town, she noticed the business card. The printed letters spelled Horizon Estate Ventures Chief Executive Officer. Below that, a blank space now held a handwritten number and a tiny compass doodle. She reached the restaurant lot near midnight. Neon reflections trembled on wet pavement. Returning the umbrella, she stepped into quiet streets. Tired limbs carried a curious heart. The business card pressed warm against her apron. Collapsing on her couch, she whispered that a simple ride can change every direction. Saturday sunrise painted pale streaks across the cracked window of Lena's small apartment. The thrift shop alarm buzzed before 6, shaking loose a dream of floating trays. Riverside Grill had promised a farmer's market brunch, so every hand was needed. Lena rubbed sleep from her eyes, remembered the midnight drive up Maple Hill, and felt her heartbeat quicken. Last night still shimmered like dew in the corners of her mind. She showered quickly, tied her hair back, and promised herself a double caramel coffee. Ordinary days sometimes hide hidden chapters, she whispered while stepping into cool morning air. The restaurant smelled of fresh bread and wet umbrellas when Lena arrived. Iris, the hostess, waved her over, pointing at table 20, where an ivory envelope leaned against a sugar jar. Red wax formed a crooked letter V across the flap. Lena imagined a forgotten wedding invite, yet Iris nearly bounced, urging her to open it. Inside lay a folded note, a business check, and a tiny brass compass sticker. The note thanked her for steering a stranger home and reminded her that dreams should drive, not frighten. Beneath those words gleamed a check for $5,000. Signed by Nolan Vargas. Breath caught in her throat like a trapped sparrow. Rumors sparked faster than coffee boils. Kevin, the busboy, bragged that $5,000 would buy him freedom from bicycle pedals. Tara, the dishwasher, slowed her rinse to hear every whisper. Bruno, the manager, held the check under a pendant lamp, studying watermark and routing numbers. Legit, he murmured with awe. Lena felt both lighter and heavier, as if gravity could not decide. Guilt nudged because she had refused cash last night. Yet here lay enough to wipe out months of rent. Iris squeezed her arm, saying sometimes comerangs in bigger circles. Lena tucked the check into her apron pocket, where it warmed her side like a secret ember. Brunch flowed into noonlight, while patrons tried to solve the mystery. An elderly pair insisted they had seen the same man buying every pie at the town bake sale. A traveling salesman declared the sedan outside must be a European model, limited to 100 units. Each tale painted Nolan into a legend with softer edges. Lena floated through orders, rereading the note during breaks and tracing the compass with her thumb. When the last table cleared, she slid the envelope behind her weathered recipe journal, as if locking wonder in a private vault. Rain greeted the afternoon, so Lena ducked into the laundromat near her bus stop. Fluorescent lights hummed and washers spun colored clothes into dizzy rings. She opened her phone, where Nolan's number waited under the name Compass. 3 messages formed, then vanished. Thank you seemed too small. Questions felt invasive, even. Hope you are safe sounded flimsy. Deleting each draft, she watched shirts slap rhythm against glass and decided silence was safer than misused words. Outside, the world smelled of soap and wet asphalt. Sunday carried wood smoke on gentle wind. Lena visited her mother in a duplex with chipped teal shutters. Over chamomile tea, she unfolded the envelope and spoke of the ride, the note, and the unexplained generosity. Her mother listened, eyes shining, then pressed the check back into Lena's palm. Blessings shared grow roots, she whispered. Together they agreed to patch the leaking roof and clear old electric bills, then save the rest like seed for a future garden. Lena walked home through drizzle, feeling lighter, taller, and strangely brave. Monday returned, clattering plates and the hiss of butter on hot iron. During break, Iris scrolled through articles about Horizon Estate Ventures, showing photos of vine-draped hotels and solar cafes. Nolan Vargas appeared rarely in the center of the frame, always handing a cup to someone else. Humility seemed stitched into his posture. Curiosity swelled until it ached, yet Lena kept the phone silent. The entire week marched forward in tidy shifts, yet every creak of the entrance made her pulse stumble. Bruno stocked the fridge with extra Wagyu, joking that destiny demanded full supply. Kevin polished glasses until they squealed. Tara rehearsed a greeting in the dish pit in case the mystery man spoke to her. By Friday evening, suspense shimmered above every tabletop like heat over asphalt. At 8:25, headlights painted bright stripes across the windows. Iris whispered a countdown under her breath. An obsidian sedan exhaled steam, and the door to Riverside Grill swung open. Nolan Vargas stepped inside, asked for a quiet booth, and every gaze followed as though the novel they lived in had just reached its boldest chapter. Lena understood that the envelope of gratitude was only the first line of a story still unfolding beneath the hum of hanging lamps. Friday evening wrapped Riverside Grill in a hush of waiting. Word had spread that the mysterious guest might return. Lena felt electricity dance across her shoulders each time the doorbell chimed. The kitchen sizzled with ready Wagyu steaks because no one wanted a repeat of last week. Iris glanced toward the street every minute, counting headlights like stars. Bruno rehearsed apologies in case destiny decided to test him again. The crowd was lively, yet the staff moved as though they shared one secret heartbeat. When an obsidian sedan eased up to the curb, conversation thinned to a murmur. Nolan Vargas stepped out with steady grace, his gray coat lifting at the edges like sails in mild wind. He entered, bowed slightly to the room, and requested booth 12, the same place where disappointment had begun. Lena swallowed hard, feeling both brave and shy as she guided him to the seat. He thanked her and asked if he could speak with Bruno and the person who owned the building. Bruno hurried away to dial the landlord, who lived 3 states east. The evening seemed to pause, holding breath for whatever would follow. The landlord could only join by speakerphone, so Bruno positioned a small device at the table. Nolan unfolded a slim leather folder while guests pretended not to stare. He spoke with calm clarity, explaining that he acquired businesses with strong community souls, and he believed Riverside Grill possessed that rare spirit. Lena hovered nearby, refilling water glasses though her hands trembled. Nolan told the landlord he wished to buy the restaurant outright for 3 times its appraised value, payable in certified funds within 10 days. A fork climbed somewhere, then silence returned, heavier than cast iron. The landlord gasped through the phone, asking how such generosity made sense. Nolan answered that return on investment was measured not only in currency, but in narrative and trust. He added that he had once washed dishes in a roadside diner and never forgot how fragile small ventures felt. He slid appraisal documents and a purchase draft across the table and invited the landlord to review them with an attorney. Bruno wiped sweat from his brow while staff exchanged wide-eyed looks. Nolan ended the call by promising to send electronic copies before midnight. He then turned toward Lena with a softness that felt like sunrise on cold water. He asked Lena to join him at the booth, and she sat clutching her order pad, as if it could shield her from dreamlike events. Nolan thanked her again for the ride, and for refusing money when it might have felt easy to accept. He said empathy was the true foundation beneath walls of any successful place. He then offered her an unexpected path. If she wished, she could purchase Riverside Grill from him after the initial sale at half of what he would pay the landlord. She could do so with no interest over 5 years, and he would remain a silent partner, providing mentorship whenever requested. The alternative was to continue as lead server, with a significant raise and full benefits if ownership felt too heavy. Lena felt her heartbeat in her ears. She thought of long nights counting coins for rent of her mother's fading roof, of her own scribbled dream to open a community cafe one day. Doubt wrestled with possibility like 2 wings trying to decide the direction of a single bird. Around her, the restaurant buzzed at normal volume again, yet every sound seemed muffled, as though she listened from inside a seashell. Nolan placed a new card on the table with a handwritten number curved beneath printed letters that read Horizon Estate Ventures. He said decisions deserve quiet, not pressure, so she should call before sunrise if she wished to leap. Then he stood offered a gentle nod to the entire dining room, and slipped into the drizzle beyond the doorway. Lena sat still the way a stone does when a river changes course. Iris appeared offering a glass of cold water, yet Lena barely felt the condensation against her palms. Bruno knelt beside her and whispered that opportunities sometimes look like cliffs, but many have hidden bridges. At closing time, she walked the river path home while streetlights stitched gold ribbons onto wet pavement. The river whispered encouragement, and distant train horns sounded like trumpets announcing a daring march into unknown lands. Beneath a maple, she stopped, dialed the number, and listened to the ring echo through night air, sweet and sharp. Nolan answered before the second chime. Lena inhaled deeply and said she was ready to lift her feet from the ledge. His response was a simple welcome to the horizon, and with that a chapter turned, though the pages were still warm from ink not yet dry. Monday morning sunlight washed the empty dining room with pale gold. Lena stepped inside, clutching a folder of signed papers and the brass key that made reality feel larger than any dream. Juniper Knox, the attorney, had guided her through each clause with patient kindness. Now the restaurant belonged to the server who once balanced too many plates at once. She traced the smooth wood of the hostess stand, breathing in the scent of toasted grain still lingering from breakfast. As she exhaled, she whispered a promise to keep the spirit of the place both humble and bright. The echo of her words blended with quiet hope that fluttered like birds near an open window. She called her small team together at booth 5, where a plate of warm cinnamon rolls waited in place of a formal speech. Kevin, the former busboy, stared wide-eyed when Lena slid him a new name tag reading head waiter. Iris received a notebook stamped events coordinator and covered her mouth to hide a gasp. Tara emerged from the dish pit to find a fresh white chef jacket embroidered with her name and the title sous chef. Bruno, now operations advisor, lifted a mug of black coffee in salute. Lena spoke softly, explaining that Riverside Grill would become Riverside Haven, a home for comfort food, creativity, and community. Cheers rose, clanking mugs against water glasses while sugar glaze scented the air. Renovations began that very afternoon, starting with a sage green coat of paint that wrapped the walls like spring leaves. Marco, Lena's childhood friend, shaped a new hostess stand from maple wood, carving river patterns along the edges. Local artists swapped murals for lifetime meal vouchers, splashing bright trout and willow branches across once plain plaster. Mason, the carpenter, installed shelves crafted from reclaimed barn beams, perfect for jars of house-pickled vegetables. Tara tested recipes that combined classic favorites with surprising notes like citrus glaze on smoked chicken and rosemary honey. Drizzled over cornbread. Pots clanged and dust swirled, yet laughter kept pace with every hammer stroke. By twilight, every worker felt ownership in each nail and brushstroke. 2 weeks later, soft launch night arrived beneath strings of fairy lights woven across the ceiling. The first guests included teachers' neighbors and the mail carrier, who had watched the transformation with curiosity. Nolan Vargas slipped in wearing a knitted cap that did little to hide his thankful grin. He sat at the end of the community table where strangers shared stories over steaming bowls of carrot ginger soup. Before leaving, he wrote on a napkin flavor, "Sins here, keep composing," and tucked it under the edge of Lena's plate. She folded the note like treasure and kept it close to her apron pocket. Tips that evening overflowed the old mason jar they used as a gratitude bank outside the river. Hummed low and steady, mirroring the calm confidence rising inside the new proprietor. Winter snow draped the town, yet Riverside Haven glowed like a lantern welcome to anyone craving warmth. Lena introduced pay-what-you-can afternoon hours so no neighbor went hungry. Saturday mornings became cooking classes for teenagers who learned to slice onions safely and season stew with patience. Poetry nights filled the back room with gentle voices and guitar strings. Social media lit up with photos of rosemary fries under twinkle lights and handwritten thank you notes tucked beside receipts. Reservations began filling weeks in advance, but Lena kept a few walk-in tables open because she remembered how sudden kindness had found her. Every evening she paused by the door, watching strangers become friends as they passed bread baskets down long wooden boards. Spring thaw brought plans for a gratitude gala which Lena titled Riverlight Evening. Kevin hung silk lanterns while Iris guided volunteers tying ribbons around mason jars of lemon mint water. Tara perfected a menu that married bright pea risotto with smoky maple salmon. When the hall filled with familiar faces, Lena stepped onto a small stage, hands trembling not from fear, but from sheer wonder. She told the story of a rainy drive up Maple Hill and of an envelope that proved generosity could bloom in unexpected soil. Murmurs of awe floated across the room, blending with violin notes. Then she lifted a framed document for all to see, a single share of Riverside Haven reserved for guest number 1. Nolan Vargas rose from his seat under a paper lantern, eyes wide, as Lena beckoned him forward. Applause surged like a river after heavy rain as she placed the frame into his hands. He leaned close and whispered, "I offered you a bridge yet you built a garden." Lena smiled, tears gathering like morning dew, and replied, "Gardens need visiting butterflies." The scene locked in the hearts of everyone. Present a snapshot of gratitude, traded in both directions. Camera flashes captured Nolan raising the certificate as though toasting the very ceiling beams that sheltered their celebration. Months flowed gently, and success continued to root deeper. Cucumbers climbed new trellises in the courtyard herb garden, while bees droned contentedly above purple chive blossoms. Schoolchildren painted ceramic pots for the patio, grinning when their art met sunlight. Lena often paused during busy shifts just to breathe in the mix of basil bread and laughter. She remembered long nights counting coins and understood that every hardship had been a stepping stone disguised as stone weight. Mentorship emails still arrived from Nolan suggesting farm co-ops or energy-saving ovens, and she read each one like a letter from a wise friend. One warm June evening, Lena wiped counters after closing when a delivery driver wandered in, clutching a small box. His van had broken down, and he asked if he might leave the package somewhere safe until morning. Lena welcomed him with a glass of iced tea and pointed to a stool near the kitchen door. Kevin leaned over and whispered, "History repeats," and Lena laughed softly, recognizing a familiar crossroad. She wrote her number on a card with a tiny compass doodle and slid it across the counter, telling the young man to call if he needed a ride. Outside, stars blinked in agreement while the river carried moonlight toward unknown destinations. As Lena locked the front door, she turned to face the empty dining room. Chairs sat upside down on tables, and the mural trout seemed to swim in the dim glow of exit signs. She thanked the space aloud for holding countless stories, new and old. Her voice echoed softly, then settled into silence like a feather on still water. Stepping into the night air, she felt again the thrill of paths unfolding beyond every corner. Riverside Haven stood steady behind her, a testament to what kindness can cook up when given time, heat, and a generous pinch of courage.